Thanks for staying with us. Let's move on to this now. The latest essential food pricing monitoring report released this week shows that costs across food value chains are beginning to settle as some retailers are absorbing some of the price pressures. And this is despite some constraints such as the rolling blackouts, the avian flu, issues at the rail as well as the ports. And some, of course, at some point, in fact, food items like eggs, sunflower oil and beef mince were seeing some price increases, and that of course much to the detriment of some of the consumers. So does the latest data change ease the pressure on consumers somewhat? Let's speak to Mervyn Abrahams, who is the program coordinator for the Economic Justice and Dignity Group. Mervyn, thank you so much for your time this evening. I mean, the Competition Commission saying that things are beginning to settle somewhat when it comes to food prices. Your reaction to that? Is that the picture you're seeing on the ground?
So good evening, Bongiwe, and good evening to all your viewers. And yes, our household affordability index, the food basket, is also showing very similar trends. So we are seeing that food, at least the basket, our basket of 44 very basic foods, that the price of the basket is stabilizing but however, it is stabilizing at a very high base. So for instance, an example, so in February, we saw that the price of the basket came down by almost 1%. And then in March, we saw the basket was essentially flat. It was an increase of 63 cents only. And in April, we saw a slight tick up again of just below 1%. So we are seeing that the rates of increases of the cost of food is slowing down and is getting less and less. But it is on extremely a high base, and some foods are coming down. Foods such as, for instance, maize meal and samp and cooking oil and onions. But other foods are still showing slight increases like rice and flour and sugar and eggs. These are still showing some signs of increase, but essentially the cost of the basket are beginning to stabilize, and that should be good news. However, it is at a high base, and most households still cannot afford the cost of the full basket.
What does it mean then, Mervyn, listening to what you're saying, especially when it comes into the real threat of food security in the country?
So what we will continue to see food insecurity at household levels, very largely because the cost, even the stabilized cost or the stabilized prices are too high for people to afford. So, for instance, a national minimum wage would have brought in something like 4,600 Rand. Now, that is below what the cost of this basket is. So people will continue to have household food insecurity. We will continue to see disease, like non-communicable diseases, like your high blood pressures, your diabetes, etc., continue to increase until such a time as food prices significantly come down or household incomes significantly increase.
All right, Mervyn, thank you so much for your time. And one certainly hopes that at some point, some of the measures continue to be sped up to be able to cushion the blow. But it's good news to hear that things are stabilizing somewhat. That was Mervyn Abrahams, who is the program coordinator for the Economic Justice and Dignity Group.